Keep going. But here we are. I'm going to start with rounding. Okay, so I'm going to start with that second one here before I do the first. I think rounding is important to grasp before we move on. I know most of you know this, right? So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 will actually round a number up, whereas 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, we call it that it rounds the number down. Okay, so when you're rounding, you're saying, I know the number continues, but I'm just going to be happy with this chunk right here. Okay, so when you're rounding the following to nearest hundredth, 2 decimals, you're literally cutting it off and you're rewriting that number. And so you always look at the number that's just to the right of the cutoff, and that will tell you what happens to the number to the left of the cutoff. So since this is a 4, it doesn't change the 8, so this is just 17.98. Okay, that'll be the rounded value there. Next, we're rounding all of them to 2 decimals. That 9 will bump the 4 up to a 5. Okay, because the 9 bumps up. We go to the next number, we cut it right here, 2 decimals, right? That 4 is not going to change the 5. So we actually just say 1945, 19.45. Again here, this will get tricky, right? That 9 will bump the next number to 9 in this case. So 201.99 and so forth. And it gets a little trickier as we go along. So watch this. You cut it there. That 8 will bump the 9 to a 10, right? So you basically say this is going to be 10. You can't have that. So you keep carrying it to the next number, which now turns into a 2. So this is actually 1048.20 if you want, right? Does that make sense? Yeah, you still remember that stuff? Hopefully. This is not what this course is all about, just so you know, right? So this 6 bumps this to a 10, bumps this to a 10, bumps this to a 9, right? So this is really 259.00 if you want to write it that way. We go over to this number right there. The 7 bumps this to a 10, bumps this to a 10, which bumps this to a 10, which bumps this to a 10, which bumps this to a 5. So this is just 500.00. Okay. Here, you cut it right there, 789.99, because that 4 doesn't bump anything, so you just leave it like that. So that's how you round. Got it? Let's go to the first one, fractions. For the most part, we don't want to deal with fractions. We want to turn them into a decimal. So just a reminder, the only operation that looks like a fraction is a division, right? Number over another number. So 3 over 4, obviously 3 divided by 4, 0.75. You keep what's on your calculator, you multiply that by 100, and that's the percentage you write down. Okay? As soon as you multiply by 100, you get it to a percent. Let's try another one. 5 divided by 6. Ooh, what do I do there? I don't want lines, okay? So this is 0.83. That's it. It's almost like you're truncating it there. Right? The 3 doesn't do anything to the 3, so it just stays there. But when you want it as a percentage, watch carefully, because this is the little thing that gets people in trouble. You multiply whatever is on your calculator times 100, and that's the one you round to 2 decimals. So really, this is 83.33%. not 83%. That would be considered a rounding error in this course. So you take the calculator, right? Calculator gave you that. You multiply that by 100, and that's the number you round to 2 decimals. Otherwise, you're going to get it wrong. So it's almost like you have two options. That it is as a decimal, but as a percentage, it would be that. 3 divided by 32, that is 0.09 as a decimal. You want that as a percent. You multiply that by 100, and that's 9 point. I will just keep the whole thing because it's a finite. More than 2 is okay, less than 2 decimals is not okay. Right, so that'd be my final answer. Or 9.38. Either one of these is acceptable. 19 divided by 23. That's 0 point. You cut it right here. So the 6 bumps the 2 to a 3. But if you want to state that as a percent, you multiply your answer by 100. Let me just do that here. Times 100. And that gives me 82.61%, right? Because you want to cut it here, so the 8 bumps that 0 to a 1. Okay? So it's those little things that are going to throw you off if you're not careful. How do you deal with whole mixed numbers, right? So the 3 represents a whole number, so that should be 3 point, and then you divide this. 1 divided by 4 is 0.25, right? So you would just add it. It's 3 1/4. Does that make sense? Right? 3 whole and 1/4. And so it's 3.25 times 100. That's 325%. Here you have 17 1/8. So watch this. You just go 1 divided by 8, right? And then you write it 17.125. It's a finite. It ends. So you just write it like that. Multiply that by 100. Whoa, what happened there? Well, wait. You multiply that by 100, you get 1,712.5%. And so forth, right? So you get the point. The key will be posted on Google Classroom later on. So I'm skipping a few because I'm looking at my time. A lot of you are going to probably leave at 3:20, right? So I'm going to skip down here. This is another important. These two, I want to make sure I cover at least a few of each. When you need to find a percentage of a number, folks, all you do is you divide that by 100. Divide that by 100. Whenever you see the percent symbol, you divide that by 100. So you take 3 divided by 100, that's 0.03. You need to convert that into a decimal. Of in math is always multiply. Remember that, 250 bucks. So you take that decimal, you multiply it by 250, and so that's 750. And we are in dollars, so make sure you have dollars. 750. Would it be wrong to write 7.5 in this case? In this course, yes. If it's a dollar amount, you have to have 2 decimals. Okay, so because it's considered a concept that a dollar amount will always be stated in 2 decimals. Okay, and next, let's do this one here. Oh, it has a percent. Mr. Dirksen told me to just divide that by 100, and I'm going to write the whole thing down. And I'm already thinking about what I'm going to do after school, right? Most of you are. Don't lie. That's okay. That's $68.76, right? So you round to 2 decimals. especially when it comes to money. But then there's this really scary one, which, right, it's like, what, right? Just divide that by 100. 0.85 divided by 100. It makes a big difference if you get this. If you get even 1 0 wrong, it's off, right? $675. That is $5.74, right? Because you cut it here, the 7 bumps it to a 4. And that's the final answer there. Make sense? Let's do this one here. I'm going to leave this one up to you. Really just have to think of it as 2.75%, right? 2 3/4, 2.75. Let's write that as a decimal. And what are we talking about here? People, right? So when you do that, right, you get this. Can you have that many people? The concept is no, right? You can't have partial. So you got to go like this. Wave a squiggly equal sign. In this case, the 7 would bump the 2 up to a 3. So you have to have whole units. If it's number of cans, number of people, number of coins, we need to round to whole numbers, okay? If it's centimeters, meters, that's okay to state it. Even time, it can be stated as a decimal, but not discrete data, okay? This is your favorite. This is going to be your favorite after today, hopefully. It's called cross multiply and divide. Do you remember that? From grade 10, grade 11, grade 9, maybe? Watch this. Where's the variable? It's on this, in this case, it's on the right side. So I focus on that. I start my journey on the right side with the number. I got to cross multiply and then divide. Okay, that's how you do these. So n is 38 times 45 divided by 76. I need you to show me that work, okay, this intermediate step. So I go 38 times 45 equals, divided by 76, 22.5 exactly. We don't know what the units are, so let's just get used to, if there are no units, just put down units, right? So you don't forget that there should be something there. Next, the variables on the left side, okay? So that's where your journey starts, on the left side, with that number. So you got to cross multiply and then divide. Okay, so cross multiply and then divide. So m is 3.95 times 95.7 divided by 124.5. 3.95, I'm going to have that here, times 95.7 equals, then I divide, and that's 3.04, watch, right? After the 3, there's a 6, so the 6 bumps you up. And we don't know what units, so we're just going to put that down. Okay? And so on and so forth, okay? So homework, I want you to do questions 1 to 6. So it's the back of this page and then a little bit on the other end. You got to deal with taxes. Taxes are 7 and 5, so 12%, it tells you there. If you want to do the whole thing, just because you want to be really prepared, I will post the key to the entire thing online. Okay, so if you want to do more than just the basic, there's a few more cross multiply and divide. I'd really want you to do a few of those.